Okay, we just came from the like clubhouse where everybody gets together. This is a private club here. It's where we have a charger set up because that does have power to charge our batteries. We still do not have power up there. It's there's other people working and stuff on the lake today. It's just amazing how just noticing how the sound travels across the water, and it's even worse at night. Worse or better, whatever. It travels more easily at night. So it's a cool concept to come to the lake and party with friends, but I can see it's almost always kind of annoying everybody else because it's like, it just sounds like it's right next to you. As a weird little aside, but starting to get rain down here. But like I say, I came from the clubhouse down there and it's functional. Hi, little D. But there's like beadboard buckling off the wall, and the trap is sort of at the floor and comes out through the baseboard, and the baseboard's just that stick-on vinyl stuff, and there's gaps in it and stuff like that. It's that sort of finish quality or lack of quality. But it made me think, this is a bad angle, but this is a whimsical property. This is like Americana, coming, as considering what I just said about the noise, there's still something about coming to the lake. It's very like Pacific Northwest in this spot here with the needles, the red needles all over, and the long needles and mostly fir trees and stuff in here, and the color of the water and the A-frame and everything else. We're going to take the gingerbread and stuff off, but so again, whimsical, it's beautiful, and it's a complicated project because it's an A-frame and it's limited space, ultra limited space. And I know my client had a couple people, contractors and stuff, look at doing the work that he wanted to do down here, and it's like he never heard back from them. And I wrestle with this notion of not disparaging the trades, because I know other places in the country and around the world and stuff, just to be global about it, but in the country, people have more of an appreciation for the artistry. The industry has more intellectuals, and people take it seriously. I follow a lot of YouTube channels that just make me wish I worked somewhere else in the country. And we have a lot of great people here, and my client on this project is great. But what I mean is, a lot of times in an economically depressed area, more like the Northeast, where I'm at, you have more, hack and smash kind of work that takes place. And again, some people look at doing this project, and it's just, they can't see solving all these problems. They just want to do something that's quick and easy and more ordinary. So anyway, we take these, technically magic is my business, and we take these complicated problems that need to be solved, and I enjoy them. And so we're going to showcase a little bit of what goes into that here without running too long, hopefully. But we've discussed, and we'll go exhaustively over how this draining and seasonal property is supposed to work, or intended to work when it's finished, and we can look at everything. But right now we've come downhill to these manifolds and downhill to the water equipment, and it's all in this area. But I'd still like to be going downhill to the water service from here. And you just can't come downhill without going all the way around, and you still run into having to be above these openings, and you have to be above these openings here. So I want to start as high as possible and fall all the way down, quarter inch, a foot or so, to the water connections here. So that meant that I kind of basically intend to cut these main lines and install a reducing tee, so it's 3/4 by 3/4 by half off, and I'll take the 1/2 inch lines and I'll go right in this hole that we did as high as we possibly could in this wall, and it has fallen, and we're able to, over this distance, get from this point and go down and just make it out above the header without having to core through the header. We couldn't be any higher, so you may get to a point where you have to start drilling through solid wood, which is a bear. Didn't have to do that. Now we're in the corner, and we can turn out of there, and we can go down this bay, and then we can turn around this corner when we get underneath the window, and then we can go to this point where we're lined up with the drain that comes out of this wall, which is the wall that the laundry service is on over here. And there it is. And but you've seen in a previous video that this connection box has been installed as high as it can possibly be in this wall, and the wall can't be any closer to us. That would allow it to be taller, that would allow this to be installed higher, because we have a finite amount of room here to put a washing machine and a dryer before we get as close as we already have come to the hearth, which is going to cause us to need a heat shield that hangs on the rolled edge of that and has a few layers with standoffs that allows air to migrate through it and doesn't bake out our wall too much, and it's all based on space requirements. Anyway, So as high as we could possibly be in this wall is kind of like here, but I got even crazier because I have the tools to do it, and I went right up into what would basically be a horizontal top plate, although it's at an angle because of the angle of this roof, and I came in right in the top plate and rolled down smoothly and out of there using a selection of hole saws. But you'll notice, here it is over here. This was the highest point, and this is the sheathing. However, there is 2 inches of homosote on top of the rafter system that I know about, and I suppose I could have even gotten higher and scalped out some homosote and played a game where I didn't try not to bump into the deck of the roof or anything, or carve out the flashing that's in this valley outside. I played it kind of safe because I was able to measure and see that I could get from this location as high as it was here. I couldn't. I did have to be that high. I couldn't be down here, and I could fall just to into the side of this box. And there were requirements there, because if this is the side of the box and I want to throw the quarter turn switch to turn water on and off, this is as low in the box as this connection can be without banging the lever into the bottom and your thumb having to be behind it, which starts to become sloppy. So this is as low as this one could be, and the next one has to have, it can't be lined up too closely. It needs to have its own sort of clearance. So it becomes, that forces this location, which is the highest point, and then I plotted that point on here, and I went up a 1/4 inch a foot, and I had to be there, etc. So now we find out that we got to be there. But there were no holes in the side of this box. It came supplied with knockouts in this location. You notice there's some behind that, and there's some at the top, but there wasn't anything on the side. And this is plastic, and it's sort of $35, $40 worth of stuff. I didn't want to make a hash of it, and if you just go drilling through thin wall plastic with a twist bit, you'll get started, and the moment you come through, you begin, it'll wrestle it out of your hands and do a really terrible job of the hole drilling. So you want like a $40 or $50, believe it or not, usually, Christmas tree bit or step bit that you'll notice does about 1/8 of an inch, no more. So you're restricted to thin, kind of for sheet metal or plastic sheet or that sort of materials. But it migrates through, and every time you open the hole up a bit further, it gets to be a larger diameter, but it does so cleanly and smoothly. And I actually had to go all the way through. This is my biggest one, and I had to go all the way through to create the amount of clearance that I needed. So we got that done. However, that had to be the side, just so happened, and I'm committed to the stud location and all the stud locations because this is all socket welded and it's been glued up, and there's just no way to foresee these things because every time you set out, you do something different. It would have been nice if the connections were on this side where it's clear, but they're on this side right against the stud. So we have to have openings through the wood that are large enough to spin up the grommet tightly, and really what will end up happening is I'll reach through the hole with a screwdriver and just keep the grommet, I'll flip it up as tight as I can get it while I've got the stub turned too high or low, whatever have you, and then the last little bit of tightness I'll get by turning this into a position where it's facing out, and ostensibly that will be installed pretty tightly. But then there isn't 1.5 inches of thread before the stub for the pecs. There's, so, oops, this is too hot. Let's try that. So I had to reduce the thickness of the stud in this location to be able to slide the pecs on and clamp it. Otherwise, the clamping would have to take place inside of the wood. And now that I've got that pocketed out and I've made the holes through in the locations they need to be made, and this had to be 2x6 just to begin with to get enough back angle and enough meat to attach these studs to, but now we're out of real estate. There's only one sort of lane that's meaningful here to attach with a screw. This is getting so close to the end that it would split, and so we do have a screw in there. So we're working around all of these things for clearances, and so we've gotten to this point. And then you'll notice this higher connection on the box goes right through the little loop that the mounting tab is designed to clip into with a little bayonet snap on it. And when that tab is installed tight to a stud, you'll notice the face of the box comes out the thickness of the drywall, so the face works out basically at the plane of the drywall, and I believe there's like a bezel face covering that goes over the box. So if you're at the wrong depth, the bezel doesn't clip in, yada yada yada. So I can dial this forward and back and just screw through the side of it, and I may do that behind these connections, but I gotta get a driver in there to run the screw in. I gotta do it in a tidy way, and I can't do it prior to putting these in. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. Anyway, I did try to preserve the clip. So yesterday, when I was coming down to the end of the day, I just left this place a pig mess because I was so determined to get this done. I notched the tab with tin snips because I could get it out of here and hold it individually. But the hole drilling did enough clearance on the loop for the stub, but it doesn't clearance for the grommet. So you notice in pencil, that's what I need for the grommet. But I can't do that with the drill because I don't have a bigger drill, and there's a high probability of accidentally going too far and over drilling the hole quickly, and I can't get the tin snips in there. So I had to think about this last night on the way home, and think about it this morning, and even last night when I was eating dinner. And I thought, oh, I can get the rotary tool, which is like a Milwaukee branded, like a Dremel tool, an 1/8 inch rotary tool. I have a 3-jaw chuck on it, but it's M12, and then I can carefully, just round that out, using careful with the depth, but just using this to just mill around basically and take that little ledge off of there. And then I can use that strap and I can put this all together, and it will be in fact downhill all the way from here. And when you open all the fixtures and you take the water pressure away, everything from the T, or excuse me, from the very point apex will fall down into the T's, down into the manifolds, and down to the stub outs where there's just a little remnant to be blasted out with air. And from the apex, it'll go all the way downhill and downhill to these connections sticking out the side of the wall. And it'll be up to the user whether they want to close them, put a little hose on there, and then bleed them or whatever. But this is why I make the big bucks. All right, we'll see ya.